All right, you guys, you already know what time it is. Welcome back to another TBG feature. I am your host, Nello, and today I'm breaking down the new G.I. Joe Classified series, Zartan. But let me give you guys a little bit of a background on this. So in a world where Toys R Us no longer exists here in North America, or at least not here on the West Coast, it's not Target, it's not Best Buy, it's not even Walmart that's stepping in to give us some of these action figures that are actually able to find in store, but it's Walgreens of all places. Now, as much as I would love to be surprised by this, back in the day when I used to buy some of my action figures when I was a little kid, when I would have my mom buy stuff for me or my dad, Walgreens used to have some pretty badass stuff to buy. So I'm not surprised that here we are again in the future and they got G.I. Joes out and that they're surprisingly one of the most neutral places to buy it from. Both the infantry trooper and the Zartan I was able to purchase with the employee scanning something else, well, not something else, but another G.I. Joe figure in order for me to be able to get it because it wasn't in their system just yet. No offense to Target and Best Buy and Walmart, but I'm pretty sure none of them would ever do anything like that. So if you do get a chance to get this and you're on the thrill of the hunt and you're out there, check Walgreens. They seem to work with me very well, and I've had some nightmare stories with Target and all those places. So far, if you can't get one, head over to Walgreens, see if you can get one. And if not, Zartan is on wide release, so you should be able to buy him at any one of these retailers basically starting now, all right? But in the meantime, let me go ahead and break down the figure for you, and let's see if it's something that's really worth the wild hunt to actually get these, all right? Let's get it. All right, so here we finally have the new G.I. Joe Classified series, Zartan. So this right here was a dope find for me, and as you can tell, this thing is loaded with a certain amount of personality that we have yet to see with any of the other characters from the G.I. Joe Classified series. So let's go ahead and show you a little bit more, right? So as you can tell, beautiful box art on the bottom right, and what's really cool about it is that we do see the arm of another character, but we don't see them completely. So we're not quite sure if this might be the beginning of a new character design that we haven't gotten yet, or could potentially be somebody else. We're not seeing the entire figure, but it is pretty cool, and the box art looks insanely dope. Now the figure itself, it is just oozing with personality. It could be the hood, the colored eyes, or just the sheer color palette that we see. It is a lot of brown and blacks, but it's broken up by a lot of the skin tone that we do see on the figure. And everything that it does come with, you can see in the window. So guns, knives, the monkey paw on the serpent's head, and then the mask that he does come with that does go inside of that backpack that you see at the top right. On the side, we do get the stats, including the number 23. This is the 23rd release of the series. And what's kind of cool here at the top right, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but let me go ahead and bring it down just a little bit. Right there, you're going to be able to see part of the Scorponok's insignia, which is basically a serpent through a devil's head. It's pretty hardcore. All right, but then we do have the usual stats, which you can go online and decode for yourself. Now, on the back side of these, we do get the updated box art we've seen before, the new Beachhead, Zartan, Firefly, and both the Cobra Troopers and the Cobra Vipers, and I believe the Red Ninja as well, have all been added to this. At the very top, we still see those, I believe they're called the Alley Vipers, but we haven't gotten an actual release of them just yet. And this is obviously why I do a live review so that I can see the rest of it. But as we're seeing here, that other arm that I told you we could see on the box art is just Zartan's arm. I didn't realize it was both of the same figures back to back, which is very interesting why they do it like that. Because are they showing us that there's two in the box art, right? Because he's supposed to be Master of Disguise. Which one is really him? But it is pretty dope that it's showing him holding the same face mask that does come in the package itself. And it's a dope shot. He looks pretty scary, but also pretty badass at the same time. All right, now let's go ahead and get the package. Let's go again, get the figure out of the package so I can break everything else down for you. All right, you guys, and here we have Zartan himself, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it as of right now. I know I mentioned that the Cobra Vipers were my favorite, and when it comes to regular infantry units and maybe the rest of the G.I. Joes, I'm going to go ahead and say that that still rings true. But when it comes to these unique characters and just overall my number one favorite character as it stands is without a doubt this Zartan. This is a dope looking figure, and it looks even better outside of the package. Let me give you guys a full 360. So From the front, as you can tell, from top to bottom, we get a brown hood, a red scarf, slightly more metallic brown color shadings through the armor, the shoulder pads, the straps around the forearms. The belt itself is a metallic color, and then we do get more of an iron metallic, like demon skull head as a belt buckle, which is hardcore. This is pretty badass. And then we get more more of a black metallic on the arm guards, and then again back to a more matted black for the gloves on the hands. Then we get the same brown on the chest on the inner part of the thighs, and then the armor on the outside does provide some of the same color palette that we see on the more metallic shades of the figure itself. And then at the bottom we do get more of that silvery grayish color for the boots. So this is the front shot. Beautiful side shot, very neutral pose, and this guy is tall. If you guys saw my last review, this guy is a big guy, and I'm gonna have to give you guys a size comparison, but a beautiful neutral stance. This guy has a lot of personality in his character, and a lot of that comes from the fact that you can see his abs, so you can see more of what's going on there, and that is gonna help out with articulation when we get to that moment. And then on the back side, we do see, again, a reoccurrence of everything I mentioned on the front. Again, the detail is phenomenal. That hood looks great. And there is a hole at the top of the back armor, and that's so you can peg in the backpack that does hold his face, but it also does hold weapons. And I'll show you guys that when we get to the accessories portion. And then here we have the other side mirroring the first side that we went over, and it's the same thing. And I'm actually noticing that on the hood, maybe I didn't see it on the other side and we're only seeing on this side, but we do get a somewhat of a granulated look right there. It looks pretty dope. It almost looks like scales. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if it is. Now, to make sure I'm not giving you guys a disservice, or excuse me, doing a disservice for you guys, let me give you guys a close-up of that face. And Zartan is not to be fucked with, man. This guy looks pretty insane. The amount of detail in the eyes is really nice. You can see the eyes around the colors and the pupils themselves, and then the actual black paint on the eyes, and then the lips themselves have a really nice detail. This is fairly realistic for the G.I. Joe line, and this guy looks insane. The same way I said that the infantry troopers and the Cobra troopers look like they're pissed, this guy looks really crazy, and I think they nailed the look overall. Alright, so let me go ahead and give you guys the accessories breakdown. So for starters, we do have the hood. And this is just a really well done hood. And we get that granulated serpent look on the sides and on the top, with a pointy end on both sides actually. And this is how I kind of hope that they'll do any hood moving forward. Even the hood that we got for Storm Shadow was really nice, but I like the way they engineered this a bit better, and I hope that moving forward they do all the hoods of any hooded characters in this fashion. It works really well. Next we have the scarf. Now this scarf we have seen before. If you've seen my Cobra Viper video, this is the exact same one. The only difference is this is more in a brown burgundy color, but it comes off looking really nice. And what I really like about it that they've thought of a lot of the engineering here is that it opens from the top like that, so you can just slip it on. Now, to get into some of the more obscure things that he comes with, he does come with a monkey paw. But the monkey paw does look pretty dope overall. It looks pretty realistic for what a monkey's paw would look like. And there is a significance. It has to do with so this has a cultural significance to Zartan, because he is I believe I want to say a Cajun character. I could be tripping. I'm going to have to double check that. But this does have cultural significance to him and where he comes from. Now, to follow up the monkey paw, he also comes with a serpent's head. And it's actually done pretty nicely. It still has a little bit of pink inside of the mouth, and it looks fairly realistic. Then he also has a unique knife that we haven't seen before. And it's actually pretty dope because he can hold it upwards or downwards, but he does have a knuckle guard for the top finger, which is really dope because they all the G.I. Joe stuff basically comes with trigger fingers. So it's nice that there's actually the part of that engineering is taken into consideration. But it is a pretty unique and pretty cool knife looking overall, with a serrated edge on the back, again the knuckle guard, and it just looks really dope overall. I'm really happy they gave us something that's unique to this character. He then does come with a gun that I'm pretty sure we haven't seen before. It's more of a pistol. And it does have a pretty cool design overall that, again, we have not seen before. Kind of akin to what we got with the Firefly. So pretty dope looking overall. I really like it. And it has a really cool, almost fang shape at the bottom. So here we have the back of the backpack. The front of the backpack, again, looks really dope. And then we do have the mask itself, which comes with no pupils, so it's just blank eyes. And then obviously the mustache and the eyebrows, but a bald character. I'm not quite sure who this is supposed to be or who it's supposed to resemble, but it does look pretty dope. And it does fit onto Zartan fairly well. And it does look like this inside the backpack. And it holds pretty phenomenally well. And then on these pegs on the side is where you can put the guns themselves. Alright guys, so when it comes to articulation, Zartan is absolutely no slouch. And as you can tell, he does have his abs showing, which is different from any of the other figures before that don't have, let's say, body armor. Let me go ahead and show you the other character that has that from the Cobra line. That is Destro. He doesn't have any armor, so he gets a lot of flex as well. But in this case, we can see a lot of the skin tone itself, so it is pretty cool. And he has a lot of personality in the way he moves. So let's go ahead and start with the head sculpt. So the neck is on a ball peg on the top and bottom, which allows his head to go about this far up, which is pretty phenomenal. Let me show you from the side. You could literally have him in a flying pose and he can look directly straight forward. That's pretty good. But then let me also show you how far down he can look. He can look basically at his own feet. That is phenomenal. And then of course it does do a full 360. So definitely no lack of articulation there. When it comes to the T-pose, he actually gets very far. That is obviously definitely one of the furthest T-poses. Basically, he comes up, I want to say like 91 degrees. He's a little bit past 90 degrees, just the slightest bit. I don't know if my camera can pick it up, but as you can tell, he goes very far. There's absolutely no problem here. And the cool thing that you actually notice is the fact that these shoulder pieces aren't connected to the shoulders. They're actually connected directly to the vest. Now, my only problem with that is that sometimes when they decide to go with this version of shoulder pads instead of having them connected, let's say, to the shoulder joint, that they don't necessarily move in tandem very well. But this one actually seems to work pretty well. They don't really move out of the way pretty well. And when you are putting his arms up like straight forward, it still holds its form in a very nice way without looking like it's being pushed out of the way. You get what I mean? Now for this part right here, I am going to have to show you guys that he does have a butterfly joint in there just like everybody else. And he does get a fairly good range of movement front to back. It's just enough to give him that extra edge, especially when you're trying to put a gun in his hand. Now he does have an upper bicep swivel, which does do a full 360. And then I should mention that obviously the shoulder does go all the way around 360. At the biceps, at the elbows, we do get double joints, which even though he is a big boy, he does get a very far amount of articulation there. So way past 90 degrees, which is very nice. Now he doesn't have anything right here at the forearm, so that's fine. It does hold the armor piece in place, which I do like. And then we do have a swivel at the wrist. And then I believe, as you can tell, he does have that cowboy stance on his hand. Now, unlike some of the other figures that we've had, this one actually swivels down really nice. That wasn't hard at all for me to do. If you guys remember the infantry trooper, he did have a bit less articulation, but he can literally point it down while his arm is still looking straight up in a normal, let's say, aiming downside position. Now the other arm mirrors the exact same way, except for on this hand, it actually does the same thing. We do have the the cowboy stance in the left hand as well. So technically, if we want to be, again, technical about this, Zartan is ambidextric. Now he does have an upper abdomen ab crunch, which allows him to do this. And this is without using the bottom half. So that's about as far as he goes with the top part of the articulation in his torso. And that's about as far back as he goes. So in both directions, you do get a fair amount. Towards the front, you get an incredible amount. And to the back, you do still get enough to, again, show a lot of personality in his posing. Now, in the bottom of the waist, it does do a full 360. And then it also bends a little bit forward and a little bit back. So that's about as far forward as he goes. And that's about as far back as he goes. So it does definitely give you a little bit of that extra range that sometimes we don't get out of the characters that do have armor on their chests. Torsos. Now, when it does come to the legs, there is just as much articulation as you would assume. He can do the splits, and they actually go very far. Zartan is basically a fucking cheerleader. The hips also drop down, which do give him a considerable amount of size. And then with the hips drop down, he can get a kick that goes a bit noticeably past 90 degrees. So that is pretty good. And then at the top of the thigh, we do get a cut that does allow for a full 360. At the knees, we do get a double joint, so he can go and just shy of being able to kick his own ass, but basically all the articulation you'll ever need. And then at the upper calf, we do have a cut for the armor, so it looks very seamless and it looks really nice. And I like the fact that you can move this part of the armor a little bit left and right. It allows for better articulation, or should I say better look in the articulation. His feet do go about that far down, which is really good. About that far up, which is just enough, but it's kind of hindered. And then we do get the ankle pivot, but for some reason Zartan doesn't have that much of an ankle pivot. We've definitely seen better before, and I want to say that it's really because of this armor down here. The way that it's sculpted kind of stops part of it, but you still get some. Mine might just be a little bit tight, but I really do feel that some of that articulation is overall blocked, but you do get at least enough to give him a little bit of personality in his poses. All right, you guys, so the reality is that this Zartan character is just an ace in the hole for G.I. Joe. I mean, I know that they've been putting out a lot of products, and thank God they decided to make this Zartan a non-Target exclusive. You can get this guy anywhere, or should I say basically anywhere, so he will be a wide release. Now, for me, this has been one of the more near perfect figures that we've gotten from G.I. Joe. I think the only thing that can make this any cooler is I've been told that in some of the olden days, Zartan used to change skin color. So maybe we're going to be getting an exclusive later with a different skin tone color. You know, obviously they need to make their money off of this buck, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's how they do it. And maybe another weapon, if not really. What I would like to see moving forward in the G.I. Joe line is potentially more coloring in some of the weapons, or if not, extra hands. I mean, I like the fact that he has, you know, two gun holding hands and they both have the cowboy grip, but it would be really dope to get, let's say, fisted hands, or maybe hands specifically made for holding, you know, his masked hand and stuff like that. So that would be really cool to see in a future line of these characters. Honestly, I am very happy that this has been a wide release of all the characters that I think that I would say are a must-buy. Obviously, some of the exclusives are must-buys, the Vipers, the Troopers. But when it comes to a wide release, I think Zartan is the #1 figure, especially because we got what should be basically his real attire from the get-go. Unlike, let's say, Storm Shadow, how we got that Arctic version of him. Here we're getting the legit Zartan from the jump, and I think it's one of the best figures of the line so far, bar none. And that Destro looks pretty good too, and I might have to give you guys a review. But in the meantime, without a doubt, this Zartan is fucking dope. All right, you guys, and obviously what is a review without having a couple of size comparisons? So let me go ahead and throw it in there. So to start off, we have Beachhead, and as you can tell, Zartan is still taller than him, even with the cap on and the hood on. But if you take a look, you'll see that Beachhead's shoulder is just a little bit lower. So Zartan is definitely bigger than at least Beachhead. Next, from Cobra, we're going to have Destro. And Destro and Zartan are more directly on the same size. I'm almost willing to say that Destro's chest comes up a little higher, but Zartan's neck, he definitely has a bit more neck. So if you put it together, they're basically the same height. Now we're going to have him next to an infantry unit. And again, just like Beachhead, Zartan is definitely the bigger guy. His shoulders come up higher, his head comes up higher, and just the bust itself looks noticeably larger than the infantry unit. And actually, I don't know if I noticed it on the Beachhead so much, but maybe because of the color palette, but this Zartan is buff, dude. He's even bigger than the infantry unit, and he's wearing actual clothes, you know, so this is a big boy. And now on the right, we're going to have the Cobra. So as I mentioned, on the right, we have this Cobra Viper, and it's not picking it up as well on the camera as it is in real life, but he's definitely shorter still than Zartan. And again, a bit of a smaller body, but he does seem to have a slightly wider buck than the infantry unit. He definitely doesn't look as small as the infantry unit. So I'm not quite sure why the big size difference between all of these, but I imagine that they were going for a different scale when they were coming out with the infantry units in the beginning. But I still think it looks great. And next to the Cobra Viper as well, it looks very cohesive. This is a very badass army. Now for some supposedly bigger characters, we're about to find out how big. We have Gung-Ho. And Gung-Ho is going to be the same buck and basically size as Roadblock. So both Roadblock and Gung-Ho are a little bit bigger, but while the body itself is fairly large, The neck, I think, is still just the slightest bit shorter than, let's say, Zartan. So because of that, Zartan looks like he's about more in line with that size, but he's still definitely smaller overall. Smaller shoulders, smaller biceps, forearms, torso itself is smaller. So it's a smaller buck overall with the Zartan figure, but he's still obviously more of the mid-size character rather than being one of these smaller ones that we've seen so far. And again, for one of these smaller sizes, we're going with the snake eyes. And as you can tell, he definitely is smaller overall. The entire body is just slimmer, even if he is not too much shorter than Zartan, but it's basically forehead to eyes in this situation. So he's definitely the smaller character here. So definitely Zartan fits that perfect in the middle size, but more so on the big size. So he is a pretty dope character overall, and he's very imposing, which is cool because he's not just a small buck character that looks kind of crazy. He looks like he can take on basically everybody, and he looks fucking crazy. So that's dope. Alright guys, so Zartan is a wide release character. There's absolutely no reason why you can't get him. At the time of this pre-order, at the time of this recording, he is still pre-orderable. So I'm going to tell you guys right now, there's no excuse. Get this guy. If there's anyone you're going to get so far, this is the one that has my vote for the most personality in a character, the most articulation, the very good hood. And actually, that brings me to my last point. Let me just show you guys this for comparison. So as you can see with Storm Shadow's hoodie, by the way, as you can tell, he's a lot smaller. But when it comes to Storm Shadow's hoodie, it's actually connected at the bottom side right here, while with Zartan we get an open concept, and I really like the way that looks. I like how Storm Shadow's hood does fit on his head and it does sit nice and low, but I do like the more open concept of the way it looks like for Zartan. So I hope moving forward, obviously, any hooded character still gets a hood that's functional like both of these, but my vote goes to Zartan. Alright, so if you guys did like that, please give me a like, comment, or subscribe. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of the figure, if there's anything you want to let me know about maybe Zartan's character, and what I could do to tailor this kind of content more to your guys' liking. Any kind of feedback helps me make this better as I move forward and as I try new things, new light boxes, new tools, in order to make these reviews a bit nicer for you guys. But in the meantime, that was a TBG feature, and I am your host, Nello, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Deuces.